Morning. Tablet devices should be switched to mute. FM then F8. I can hear myself. Can I remind members to declare their interest as appropriate throughout the meeting? Can I remind members that the Minister will be attending both today's committee meeting and the informal meeting with the Northern Ireland Livestock Auctioneers Association? Time is tight, so can I remind members to keep their questions short and concise, with one question and appropriate supplementary per member. We will go round again for further questions as time allows. I will only allow one supplementary members this time, and we will go round again if need be, just to keep things as tight as possible. I declare the meeting open to the public. Agenda item number 1 then is apologies. Do we have any apologies?
Judith Cochran has indicated she may be late.
Okay, Judith. Any other further apologies? Okay, moving on. Agenda item number 2 then is Chairperson's business. Can I refer members to a draft press release at pages 5 and 7 on the publication of the report on the Reservoirs Bill? Can I seek agreement for the press release to issue? Okay, members agreed? Okay. Can I refer members into the agenda for the informal meeting this afternoon at 3:15 p.m. approximately with the Minister and representatives of Northern Ireland Livestock Auctioneers Association. And this meeting will move to room 30 after today's committee meeting. Do you have that? Yeah, you all have that?
Page 8.
Page 8?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Members agreed?
Agreed, yeah.
Okay. Can I advise members that the visit to the Rural project following the National Ploughing Championships has now been confirmed? The project is one of the world's leading beef production research programmes and is based in the Grange, County Meath. Members confirmed to attend are Joe Byrne, Joanne Dobson, William Irwin, Ian Milne and Declan McAleer. As this will be an interesting project, can I seek agreement for the researcher to do a paper on the Grange and to accompany the committee on the fact-finding visit? Members content?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay. As we approach summer recess, can I seek members' agreement that I and the Deputy Chair, Joe, submit views on releasing or withholding information on any non-routine / contentious freedom of information requests which may be received during this time? Are members content? I'd say all the committees are doing that. Yeah. Okay, members content?
Agreed, yeah.
And can I just say it would be amiss of me not to mention that this could well be, I know he's not here, but this will be Robin Swan's last meeting in the Agriculture Committee. Again, he's not here. If he does come in, I will return to it, but I suppose just to wish him the best. I'm not too sure what committee he's going on to, if any at all.
Not sure, Chair. I know he made a valuable contribution to the committee and will continue to certainly play active in agriculture roles. Tom Elliott will be joining us in committee. Very much look forward to that as well.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments, members? We'll just wish Robin all the best. Okay. Moving on then. Agenda item number 3, minutes of the meeting 24th of June 2014. Can I refer members to the draft minutes of the meeting at pages 10 to 16? Are members content that the draft minutes are accurate? If so, I will sign. Agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed, yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, agenda item number 4 then is matters arising. Can I refer members to the matters arising at page 19 to 20? Can I refer members to the monthly update from the department on Ash Dieback at pages 19 to 20? Are members content?
Yes, Chairman, it would appear that the good weather and GB is actually adding to the disease at the moment, according to Radio 4 this morning.
Right, okay. Not good. Okay. Agenda item number 5 then is the pre-consultation, the Seeds Miscellaneous Amendments Regulations, Northern Ireland 2014. Can I refer members to the memo from the clerk at pages 22 and papers from the department at pages 23 to 60? Can I advise members that the department is proposing to consult on the Seeds Miscellaneous Amendments Regulations on the 7th of July 2014 for a period of 10 weeks. The Department advises that the amendments are of a technical nature and will ensure that it fully complies with the obligations under European law. The main objective of the regulations is to update the current cereal seed regulations in order to ensure that Northern Ireland maintains its wild oat-free status, and it will make the legal requirements to notify the Department of all cereal seed in excess of 20 kilograms imported into Northern Ireland. Can I seek comments from members? If there are no comments, can I seek agreement to request that the Department returns to the committee with an analysis of the responses once the consultation period has ended? Agreed?
Agreed.
Agenda item number 6 then is the SR 2014/172, the Plant Health Amendment Order, Northern Ireland 2014. Can I refer members to the memo from the clerk at pages 62, 63, and papers from the Department at pages 64 to 67. Can I advise members that the committee considered the SL1 on the 9th of June 2014 and had no issues with the merits of the policy? The amendment seeks to remove the controls on an insect pest of maize, meaning that the insect can no longer be treated as a quarantine pest. The Department did consult with numerous organisations and received only one written response from the Ulster Farmers Union, who stated that they had no concerns with the proposal. Can I seek comments from members? If content, can I put the question then? That the Committee for Agriculture and Rural Development has considered SR 2014/172, the Plant Health Amendment Order Northern Ireland 2014, and has no objections to the rule. Content?
Yeah.
Okay, members, agenda item number 7 then. Can I refer members to the correspondence received at page 70? Page 70 to 93. Are members content to action the correspondence as suggested on the index sheet at page 69? Okay, sorry, go on.
Thanks, Chair. I would like to reference the Ulster Farmers Union concerns on the beef market. Those I'm a declaring interest as my husband is a beef and cereal farmer. I agree with the views which the UFU have laid out in their letter to the Minister, and we're all very aware in this committee the very real concern amongst the sector, especially at the current volatility in the market. A note in their letter, the Ulster Farmers Union are calling on the Minister to meet with them. Could I suggest that we write to the UFU, invite them to present us as the committee as well?
Okay, members content? Okay, Joe, yeah.
Chairman, I think this issue is becoming more apparent right across these islands. I believe today over in Britain there is a major meeting taking place between beef processors and farming organisations, because it's now regarded as a serious issue. 20% drop in prices over a year is catastrophic, and the worry is that the cow herd is going to decrease. Beef calves coming into production and the future will be decreased. Given that there has been an increase in the margin for the retailers and the processors, and there's a 20% cut in the farm gate price, there's going to have to be some sort of intervention of some kind or order to try and regulate this a bit better. I do believe, Chairman, that we as a committee or the Minister needs to facilitate face-to-face meetings formally between the processors in Northern Ireland and the farming unions. Make sure that all the issues can be dealt with in the one room, and an airing of all of the issues and concerns put on the record on the table for some serious discussions, because otherwise there are going to be big casualties. Thanks, Chairman.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman, yeah, I would also fully agree with the previous members. I think it's important that every effort can be made, and we as a committee are seen to act and do what we can in regard to that. I think the drop in prices has been very serious, and many don't fully realise just how far they have dropped. I think it's very concerning, and I think the suckler herd is going to be under immense pressure coming into this winter. So I think it's important that every avenue is explored.
Okay, we do have the opportunity today with the ministers being before us, so I think this is something of vital importance. 3:15. Okay. Moving on then, members, agenda item number 8, forward work programme. Can I refer members to the forward work programme at pages 95 to 98? Can I advise members that, as agreed at last week's meeting, the Department are trying to organise the visit to the TVR project, and there have been 2 dates offered, Wednesday the 16th of July and Monday the 18th of August. The visit will start at 4:30 a.m. in Rathfield Island, and the tick sheet is now circulating if members can indicate if they intend to go on the visit. The Assembly Research Officer will be able to attend and will provide a note of practical and operational issues around the visit for members' information for those who are unable to go. Okay, members content that the tick sheet will go around. Can I advise members that all committees will receive financial scrutiny training during the next session? This would begin in September with a module on scrutiny of in-year monitoring. Members will be aware that at the first meeting back on the 9th of September we agreed to hold our strategic planning session, so this may be a good opportunity to have a finance training then too. The rest of the meeting on that date will be used to clear any SRs and correspondence that have been received over the summer and allow members to attend question time. Are members agreeable to this format for the meeting on the 9th of September? Good. Okay, agreed. As previously agreed, the Minister will attend the second committee meeting on the 16th of September. Can I then seek agreement for the forward work programme as it is? Members agreed?
Agreed.
Okay. Okay, moving on then, agenda item number 9. Oral briefing from DARD 2014-2020 Rural Development Programme Update. Can I refer members to the memo from the Clerk at pages 100 to 106, papers from the Department at pages 107 to 271, and the tabled paper provided this morning on the background on the Farm Business Improvement Scheme and the proposed relationship between it and the RDP. Can I welcome to the committee Claire McMaster, Grade 5 Assistant Secretary, Lorraine Linus, Grade 7 Principal Officer, Brian Irvine, Grade 7 Principal Officer, Elaine McCrory, Grade 7 Principal Officer, and Garth Evans, Grade 7 Principal Officer. You're all very welcome to the committee as always. Thank you very much for your attendance. Members will have already had the opportunity to read your papers, so can I ask you to take 10 minutes to brief the committee on any additional information you may have. I know that could be a challenge given such a massive role that Rural Development Programme is, but if I can keep you to that 10 minutes, because obviously the Minister's coming after you, Colette, you'll appreciate. So without further ado, again, thank you very much for being here, and I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members, for the opportunity to provide you with a further update briefing on the development of the 2014 to 2020 Rural Development Programme. Lorraine Linus, who's with me here, is leading on developing the new programme. Brian Irvine is from our Environmental Policy Branch. Gareth Evans is from Rural Development Division, and Elaine McCrory is from Food Policy Branch. The paper that we've sent to the committee is the first draft of the new Rural Development Programme, draft as at 16th of June 2014. This document has been drafted in the format required by the EU Commission, and as such it is a technical document which will be assessed by the EU Commission for admissibility and approval. The structure and the required content of the Rural Development Programme are set in the EU implementing legislation and the regulation. The first section of the document is a factual description and analysis of the region. This is followed by the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats section, or the SWOT analysis, and following this is an identification of the needs. Section 5 in the document is an important section and sets out the justification of the strategy, the needs which have been prioritised and the measures selected. The programme structure is much less rigid in this next programme than in the current programme's axes structure. The next programme offers more of a tailored approach. Member States select from a menu of measures in developing their programmes, and this allows us to address the specific needs that have been identified in Northern Ireland. The document provided today also details some of the measures which will be supported. A number of the other sections for the draft programme are currently being finalised. These include the remaining measures, the finance plan, the indicator and evaluation plan, and the implementing structures. In terms of our ongoing engagement with stakeholders about the draft programme, the RDP Stakeholder Consultation Group has considered the majority of the draft material that has been provided for the committee today at their meetings on the 3rd of April and on the 5th of June. Both these meetings were constructive, and as a result, minor changes have been made to the content of the individual measure. We propose to discuss the remaining draft programme material with the RDP Stakeholder Consultation Group when it next meets on the 30th of July. As regards the next steps, we will have the majority of the draft programme ready by the end of this week for sharing both with the ex-ante evaluators and on an informal basis with EU Commission officials. Informal discussion with EU Commission commenced by video link on the 6th of June and is expected to continue throughout the summer. Depending on the outcome of these informal negotiations, it's expected the programme will be formally submitted to the EU Commission in October. The Commission is required to provide an opinion within 6 months, and I'd like to stress that the draft programme document will be subject to change during both the informal and the formal negotiations with the Commission. As you're aware, last week the Minister announced that the Executive has agreed a proposed budget for the next Rural Development Programme of up to £623 million. This is made up of approximately £186.5 million of EU funds that will be matched pound for pound from the DARD budget, giving a total of £373 million, compared with the size of the current programme, which is approximately £540 million. The package of support agreed by the Executive for Rural Development includes additional funding of up to £250 million for a farm business improvement scheme. DARD will bring forward bids to the Executive for that additional funding of up to £250 million to fund a farm business improvement scheme that will meet the Agri-Food Strategy Board's request in Going for Growth. Detail on how the budget will be allocated across the individual schemes in the next RDP will be available in the next few weeks. The proposed farm business improvement scheme will be an important part of the next Rural Development Programme, and it will include a portfolio of measures to support sustainable growth in the agri-food industry. The committee has been provided today with a short document which details the proposed structure of the Farm Business Improvement Scheme and the elements of the Rural Development Programme which will contribute to this scheme. The aims of the Farm Business Improvement Scheme align closely with the competitiveness strand of the Rural Development Programme, and an enhanced RDP is therefore an appropriate vehicle for its delivery. And we'll be happy to talk about that diagram that's been provided during the discussion part of the meeting. A clear need has been identified in the RDP for farmers to be provided with support to invest in their farm businesses and to improve their competitiveness. The Farm Business Improvement Scheme will provide support to help farmers to increase farm production sustainably and to improve competitiveness through increasing efficiency, integrating the supply chain and adapting to market requirements. Capital investment support will be an important element of the scheme. Another important element will be support for training, sharing knowledge and learning new skills to ensure industry can benefit from the transfer of new innovative technologies and adapt to the changing needs of the industry. At the heart of the Farm Business Improvement Scheme will be the Business Investment Scheme. There's more detail about that scheme on pages 101 to 108 of the draft programme document you've received. This will be the main capital investment scheme within the next programme, and it will support a number of areas where capital investment is required, including the Environmental Farming Scheme and the Land Management Programme. Officials are currently developing a strategic outline business case for the Farm Business Improvement Scheme, which will go to DFP for approval. The Executive has agreed that the budget of up to 623 million for the next RDP will include additional funding of up to £250 million for the proposed Farm Business Improvement Scheme. The actual amount of funding needed for that scheme and the bids that go forward will be subject to the industry uptake of the scheme. As explained earlier, the draft document presented today is a technical document which requires EU approval in order to access the EU allocation of £186.5 million. The present document is not in the format that will be used to communicate the content of the next RDP to potential applicants. As part of implementation planning for the next RDP, we will develop a communication strategy to explain the support available to potential applicants, and this will include the development of a more user-friendly and more easily understood summary of the proposed programme. So, in conclusion then, the Department would welcome any comments the Committee would like to make at this stage on the draft programme document, and we're happy to answer any questions or provide further clarification. And that's all I want to say at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much, Claire. Sorry, I put pressure on you there for time, but I'm just realising here that we maybe have more time than we appreciate it because of the Minister and her time of her arrival. So again, thank you very much, and sorry, I apologise for putting pressure on you there with regards to finishing up your presentation. Again, very, very wide programme. A lot of details in through it there, and a massive amount of money, I suppose, to deliver on the ground through various focuses and schemes. We do know that there's 6 elements, basically, of rural development going forward. And whilst I know that this is a draft document, still to be negotiated and confirmed by Europe, can you give us any indication as to the levels of funding in each? I'm not sure of the correct terminology they use. Is it tranches or measures? 6 measures?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we so far the Minister has indicated what the allocations will be across the three objectives, and those are the competitiveness objective, the objective that deals with the agri-environment protection, and then rural development objective. So, of the budget totalling up to 623 million, up to 287 million of that budget is allocated to the competitiveness objective, and that is a significant increase from the amount that was allocated to competitiveness in the current programme, and really is reflecting the recommendations now made by the Agri-Food Strategy Board and its Going for Growth, a recommendation that DARD delivers a farm business improvement scheme. So that is an increase, substantial increase. 256 million is allocated for the protection of the environment. And that it will be through the support for an environmental farming scheme, a land management programme, and areas of natural constraints scheme and forestry elements. And then in relation to rural development, £80 million of that programme budget is allocated for the rural development objective. In terms of the going below that to individual scheme level, that is an information that's not yet available, but we will be working that over coming weeks, and we'd expect there'll be further information available in the next few weeks just on the allocation of budget across individual schemes.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And again, I do appreciate the detail and the wide spectrum contained within it. You talked about the agri-environment objective of 256 million. That covers basically the 5th and 6th tranche of the 6. I'm struggling here to find the actual terminology. Measures, 6 measures. Priorities. Yep. Sorry, priorities. Good word. Thank you. That's that one. So 5th and 6th is basically the investment in forest area development and the agri-environment climate. So that's 5th and 6th priority. And we've got two, 5.
4 and 5, yeah.
Sorry,
Four
4 and 5.
One is knowledge transfer and innovation. 2
Yes.
is farm competitiveness. 3 is food. 4 is broader sort of biodiversity, water, soil quality. 5, resource efficiency. 6 is broader rural. So,
Okay.
so 4 and 5 are the 2 environmental priorities.
So 4 and 5, 4 and 5 priorities. Okay, and within that, then you've added A and C, which is now moving to Pillar 2. Do we know how much A and C will be? How much that will be going forward? Now I know it was different, slightly different than it is now, I would imagine, but we have a figure from how much that is. Because then obviously that would have to be taken off the 256 million.
Yeah, I mean, the objectives, the funding is announced at this stage against objectives. So anything within that will come out of that objective allocation. So that's that 256 million is the total for the for that agri-environment area. The Minister's announced an areas of natural constraint scheme in Pillar 2 for the first 2 years of the next CAP period. So this is for the 2016 and 2017 years, and then the scheme will be reviewed after this. And the decisions taken on A and C are part of decisions taken on CAP reform Pillar 1, and that, as I'm aware, is part of the agenda for the committee's next item
Okay.
for the discussion with the Minister. So if you have any further detailed questions on A and C, that you wish to raise those, and
Okay.
I know my colleague Norman Phillips will get that.
Okay, no problem. Okay, I'm going to put out the floor. Can I just remind members to keep to one question and a supplementary, and we will go round again. John Dobson.
Thank you, Chair, and the Chair's already asked my first question. Follow on from that probably would be, alongside Tom Elliott MLA, I met with representatives from the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds yesterday morning, and you will be aware of their response to the consultation and their views on the agri-environment schemes. Are you aware of any studies being conducted into the cost effectiveness of past schemes and the financial benefits they can deliver for farmers?
Okay. Joanne, I'll just perhaps ask my colleague, Brian, to answer
In
that.
terms of the monitoring of the previous agri-environment programme and the NICMS, we commissioned AFBI to conduct a monitoring programme, and that's concluded. And actually, in part of that, the RSPB did very useful work on farmland birds, and definitely that area of the scheme, there was clear evidence that the scheme measures had been beneficial. In terms of monitoring overall, it is a difficult issue to fully monitor the impact of agri-environment schemes, not just here but across Europe, because there are so many other environmental factors involved, and monitoring it doesn't always come up with very clear results and outcomes. But specifically in the study that was conducted on the birds, there was good evidence here.
Yellowhammer
Farmland
scheme and
birds.
others
Yeah.
we undertook on our farm as well.
Yeah.
My sub-chair then would be, Brian, I understand that a financial appraisal was undertaken by the Welsh Government. Are you aware of this?
I'm aware as well that we ourselves conducted an appraisal, a business case for the previous programme, and that we will be doing such for the next programme, and it will be a significant piece of work. Yeah. But no, I haven't looked at the detail of the recent Welsh work. Yeah.
I'm sure you intend
We
to check
will
it out.
be taking any lessons learned from that on board. Yeah. But just on the general point, you know, the whole control and monitoring and impact of agri-environment schemes is something that the Commission now is very sensitive to as well, because that followed on from a European Court of Auditors report on agri-environment schemes across Europe, and actually the UK schemes came out pretty well. Now, none of the schemes came out with a glowing report, I suppose, but the UK schemes were sort of rated as some of the better schemes in Europe.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, Joe Byrne, Deputy Chairperson.
Yeah, Chairman, again, I welcome the presentation and I welcome the progress that has been made since we last met. In terms of the ANCs and the mapping, when will the updated mapping exercise be completed? And what sort of ramification will that have for what was the old disadvantaged areas? Secondly, in relation to merging the agri-environment schemes in relation to meeting our nitrates objectives and our phosphorus objectives, is that going to be part of the funding for any of the capital improvements for the business improvement scheme? Thanks, John.
Just on the first aspect, which is in relation to the ANC and the mapping, again, that falls in under the CAP Pillar 1 decisions, which we're not in a position to sort of give you information on with the team that's here today at the moment, but in the next session I think there will be we'll have colleagues there who actually will be able to talk in detail about that aspect.
And will the mapping exercise be centred around soil types or structures?
I think actually that I would suggest maybe it would be better for colleagues to you're from that sort of particular area to be able to do that question for you. Not sure that we can get anybody here can.
No, I mean the
comment on
Commission
that.
have provided guidance on the redesignation, which will have to be followed. But that said, that would be Norman Fulton's policy area, and rather than bringing an extra person today, we thought with them coming behind, those questions would be better directed towards the next session. But I think there was the other question.
Yep, certainly agri environment and water quality. Yes, water quality is one of the four key, I suppose, objectives we have for agri environment. We've got biodiversity and the protection of environmentally designated sites and the condition status of those. We have water quality, in particular, the framework directive. We have an overall objective of agri environment climate, and that is carbon sequestration and climate adaptation and mitigation, and as well we want to create more woodland on farm in small stands of woodland. Specifically in relation to water quality, our measures there are focused. Anything in agri environment has to go beyond the minimum statutory requirement, which is the Nitrates Action Programme. So, what our measures will be focused on is the what would I say, soft measures to improve the ecological, the biological water quality, the ecological status, and that's the main objective of the Water Framework Directive. Under the Nitrates Action Programme, we've made good progress in terms of the nutrient status, the chemical status of water. What we're finding that isn't improving to the same extent and is sort of static is the ecological status, and some of the things that are driving that are issues like sedimentation and invasive species and so on. So what we intend to do with the environmental farming scheme is the measures will be focused on, for example, buffer strips alongside waterways and rivers, and that has a number of benefits in terms of reducing sedimentation, reducing nutrient runoff, and as well there's a secondary benefit there in terms of the biodiversity and habitat that would be in the buffer strips, which are an area beside a waterway that is both unfertilised, which you have to do in the Nitrates Action Programme. You have to leave a certain distance back from a waterway when you're spreading manure or fertiliser, but unfertilised and uncultivated. Or it may be, for example, planted with some trees as well to create habitat. So it's those sort of measures that have a double benefit there, not just for water but for biodiversity and habitat. In relation specifically to capital grant, I think you were referring to, yes, in the farm business improvement scheme or investment scheme, we would envisage that if somebody is building a new livestock house, that part of that would be building adequate manure and slurry storage with it, because we would only be funding something that is compliant and would have the necessary storage, so that would be part of it.
Appreciate that. And ultimately, are we trying to meet our greenhouse gas emission objectives, or is that going to be something that's going to be the silent sort of objective?
No, well, the climate measures are, we're trying to integrate these within the agri-environment programme, and that relates around sequestering carbon, planting woodland, planting buffer strips, planting hedges, and as well things to, I suppose, when I get to the land management programme and nutrient efficiency scheme, they're managing soil structure, pH status and nutrients better to improve the efficiencies at which fertilisers and manures are used, and that has big benefits in terms of reducing greenhouse gases, nitrous oxide in particular.
Thanks, John.
Okay, Declan McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. I note that you said earlier there, Colette, that the draft programme will be with the Commission in October. I suppose, and it may be difficult for you to answer this, but is there any indication of when it might actually be open for applications? You know, I think for the programme.
Well, we Commission are required to give an opinion on a programme within 6 months of submission. So while that time frame may be shorter than that, certainly they're required to give an opinion within the 6 months. So we would hope to have, if we submit the programme formally in October, we'd hope to have approval by April 2015. So we have, in parallel to actually drafting the programme, we have a number of work streams underway to prepare for implementation planning so that we're ready to open elements of that programme as soon as we do have the approval. We are actually working this year on possibility of some pilot schemes under the new programme, and while those are going to be subject to funding being made available this year, we'd like to be in a position to run some pilots. And the purpose of those is really to help build momentum and to help prepare for making applications when the programme is ready and approved. We're looking, for example, at a pilot programme that would be about preparing for growth, which is be aimed at helping farmers take a broader view of the farm family position, farm family income, and to look at what the best options might be for farm family overall in the future. And where someone does decide that they want to be in a position to apply for capital investment under the next RDP, then this programme will help them prepare business plans for they're ready to, and the RDP is this. We're also hoping to pilot at an early stage business development knowledge transfer scheme, and that is a scheme that will be an important part of the Farm Business Improvement Scheme in the new programme. And that scheme is very much to do with peer learning, discussion groups, and it provide training and mentoring support to farmers to help them develop business plans. So the pilot work is subject to funding being made available in this current year, but if we are successful in getting that, then there's some work we'd like to do early.
Sure. Thank you. Do you see, in relation to the Priority 6, has there been much consideration given to the delivery mechanism for the Priority 6? And I'm aware from the notes here that a minimum percentage of 5% can be delivered to litre. Has there been much consideration given to the delivery mechanisms? Because I'm aware from the current programme, that some people find it a bit convoluted. Obviously probably wanted JCCs this time, and obviously some groups in that would have felt it quite bureaucratic as well. And I know that some of these issues were raised during the consultation. Has there been much consideration given, or has there anything picked up from the current programme that might be factored into the new programme in terms of how it might be delivered?
Yes, certainly. Yeah, and I'll just bring my colleague Gareth in on this one. But certainly, there's been quite a lot of consideration given to how the current programme has run and how best to operate the Priority 6 approach in the future. But like Gareth.
Yeah, one of the things the Minister did early on was confirm that there will be joint council committees in the next programme under Leader, so that's already out in the public domain. We've been working now for 2 or 3 months trying to get together the various documentation, things like draft contracts, application forms. One of the major pieces of work we started, which hopefully will come to conclusion in the next week or two, is a complete review of the operating rules. And that was done in conjunction with the local action groups on the ground. That has gone very well, actually a lot better than we thought. We're hoping to report then back. We have a strategic forum which is made up of representatives from the Joint Council Committee and LAG chairs and members. And we're hoping to report back to them maybe the start of July, if not then the end of July. And that will move forward. We have a slight advantage in that we've always known that Leader was mandatory, that we had to do it. So unlike other parts of the programme which you may or may not do, Leader you always had to do. So on that basis we have been doing quite a lot of preparatory work.
Okay. Alderman McMullen.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. The goal to increase woodland or forestry, do you see that in any way competing with the agriculture sector? And as far as land goes, because we don't have the land mass that they have in other places, so where do we hope to get land out of?
Okay. Brian?
Yeah, well, I'll take that one on the environmental farming scheme aspect and what we're trying to do there, rather than the wider forestry schemes. What research has shown us is that farmers that are maybe predisposed and keen to plant some woodland on their farm are also farmers who would tend to be in agri-environment schemes. Therefore, the environmental farming scheme is a good mechanism to deliver that small-scale woodland on farm. But I know that the point you're making there, farmers are reluctant to take good productive land out. So this is about looking across the farm and saying, is there land there that would actually be suitable to plant these on, rather than, for example, rather than fighting with some land that's maybe a bit marginal and takes a lot of work to keep it in good agriculture and environmental condition and keep it eligible with removing scrub and things. It might actually be a better, more pragmatic approach to actually just plant it in woodland. So in the environmental farming scheme we would see that as small pockets of woodland on farm in suitable places, and not really competing for good farmland, which farmers would be reluctant to plant these on anyway.
Would that bring you up to your figure that you're hoping to go for?
No, and it will only be a small contribution to that, but it's trying to maximise the woodland and farmland where it's suitable to do so. But it won't meet the forestry target overall, no, but it'll help contribute to it.
Thank you.
Okay, William Irwin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I welcome progress that has been made from in recent times, and certainly it is encouraging. In relation to the proposed 250 million going for growth, will the department work closely with the Farmers Union and all agriculture stakeholders in identifying how this proposed scheme can best be targeted to deliver growth? I think it's very important that that is done, and I would like an assurance that before the scheme is up and running, that every effort will be made to target the monies to the best advantage of going for growth.
Yep. Certainly, we have been discussing this the proposed scheme with our stakeholders, and the sort of information that we have provided to the committee today. You know, that sort of proposed content of the scheme, basically the proposed structure. We've talked to the RDP stakeholder consultation group about that. That includes the farming representatives, and we've also talked to the Agri-Food Strategy Board about it. So yes, the stakeholders are broadly content with and supportive of this proposed structure that's there. It's work that's in progress. We're continuing to develop the proposals for that scheme, and we're continuing to do that in discussion at this stage with our stakeholders. We'll have a further, as I said, we will have a further stakeholder meeting on the 30th of July. And we have been discussing with the Ulster Farmers Union and with the other farming representatives. We're currently developing a strategic outline case for the Farm Business Improvement Scheme, and that's a high-level business case, or it's a high-level stage before the business case. So in doing that, we're actually looking at where the actual needs are identified across the farming sector. We're drawing on information that's been provided to us by the Agri-Food Strategy Board, and we've also consulted the Ulster Farmers Union on this. So we are taking account of that, and we will be seeking to address the identified needs when we're actually putting the scheme together. The scheme is being drawn up on a generic basis, in terms of it's not a scheme that's designed to be targeted at one particular sector, but there will be it's a scheme that will be open to the farming sector broadly, but in actually developing tranches of the scheme or various elements of it, there will be opportunities to prioritise particular sectors if there's an identified. We'll be working closely with stakeholders on this and continue to do.
I think it's very important. I mean, there are structures, yes, but when you go to nail down the thing tighter, I think it's very important. The delivery of the scheme, at this stage, are you proposing to deliver it through the rural development, through the LAG scheme as it stands? No.
No. We're not actually. The delivery decisions on the scheme or on the programme broadly, delivery decisions are still to be finalised, but it's not. I would see the leader and the LAG being primarily involved in the delivery of Priority 6.
Yeah, I was hoping that would be the case.
I'll take note of that, man.
No, I think any scheme must be farmer friendly, and I mean, I'm told that there's other schemes in Scotland and elsewhere that work very well, and I think that's very important because we have seen some of the red tape and bureaucracy involved around some of the other schemes that I think would be getting very off-putting for farmers. So I would encourage that this farmer friendly scheme, you know, that is workable and easy. Access, you know.
Absolutely, yes, and I mean, we did stress that in the opening remarks that as this stands, this document's not farmer friendly, you know, but we do want to get to a place where when we're preparing to launch this, that there is a very easily understood and accessible way of communicating what the schemes are about and for potential applicants.
Okay.
Very important.
Okay, thank you. We can go around again, members. Time's permitting us. Whilst we look here and we see a whole raft and list of initiatives and schemes, and a lot of them are, I suppose, in a way you have listened to the consultations on the law base. When you look at the amount of knowledge transfer, advisory, both in business sense and in environmental sense, farm exchange visits, general training, they all seem to tick boxes, which probably excites us all. But with everything, it's getting it down to the nitty-gritty and the actual implementation of that. And whilst this could mean all things to all people, I think what we don't need is for farmers to be handed a file, a folder with a lot of advisory notes in it, and like farmers who are very practical and business people who are very practical. How do you actually deliver and direct that knowledge into the hearts and minds and souls of the farming community and the business, the agri-food businesses, and then obviously in the flip side of that for environmental purposes? how do you actually get that information down into the farming community in order that they put some of these practices, which are very, very good, actually into practice?
Yeah. While there's a lot of that still to be done in terms of the delivery planning, and that work sort of getting underway to sort of work behind the detail of what's sort of outlined there at high level.
Yeah.
Those are issues that we're starting to look at, and in terms of incentivising good practice and so on, we're looking at that and how we will design the schemes. For example, in terms of the business investment scheme, and looking at the entry to that, certainly there'll be 2 tiers to that scheme. A tier 1, which is the lower level capital investment scheme, which will be for project costs between 5,000 and 30,000. Tier 2, which is the higher level of tier for that scheme, is for project costs from 30,000 upwards to maximum 250,000 cost. But what we're seeking from applicants to that higher level investment is to have in place a business plan for their farm business. So in advance of actually applying for that scheme, they will have thought through what way they want to use that and what the particular growth is that they want to achieve in their business. So we're seeking to do that from the beginning, from the sort of application stage and so on. And working through business development through knowledge transfer groups that we will be encouraging. They're very much to do with peer learning, and again, farmers learning from each other, as well as from sort of inputs that we can provide through training and so. So again, looking at the ways of sort of ensuring that the knowledge transfer does actually apply and get implemented.
Yes.
And that's just some of the examples, but we're thinking about that at each scheme,
Yes.
really, how best to sort of
Just
the
on,
entry to that is, and how to actually help that be applied in practice.
yeah, just on the one you mentioned there, the business improvement scheme or the business investment scheme. The 2 tiers, 5k to 30k for the first tier. Tier 2 then is 30k to 250k project costs. But in the consultation period, that was 3 tiers. So we've basically merged tier 2 and tier 3 because there was a second tier which was 30,000 to 100,000. I suppose the question that's begs the question then with regards to, whilst I understand and recognise that there's different spectrums and capacities of farm businesses, of which they will need more investment or less investment in the future, is there a concern then that maybe some of the major players or the massive farms will apply and if you like hoover up a good lot of the funding, which means then the farmers at the lower scale or maybe below the 100,000 mark for investment, they will end up losing out because you have some of the big players coming in and with massive projects which eats up a lot of the money.
We're looking at that and how we would structure, the funding within the schemes. And as I said, that's not something we haven't sort of, and decisions aren't available yet on how we'll allocate the money across schemes and within schemes. But that will be something we'll be looking at in terms of money that's allocated between tiers and so on, and how that money is made up. We're very much thinking. This is very much a scheme that's at the heart of the Farm Business Improvement Scheme. So this is the scheme that will, where the executive has agreed that we bid for up to 250 million. So very much this will, what we need to put into that scheme will depend on the demand from industry and also then the money that is made available as a result of that demand. So we're seeking to be able to offer a tier 1 and tier 2 so that money isn't sort of entirely used up. If it's available, it's not entirely used up in any particular part of it, but Not sure we can. Do you want
Well,
to say anything
just
more?
on the 3 tiers, we did have 3 tiers in the consultation, but part of that was because at that time we were going to do renewable energy, and the anaerobic digestion stuff would have come into the very larger tier. And then when that went, we realised that we were creating an artificial structure having the 3 tiers in it, so the top tier went. We did try to address the concerns of some stakeholders about too many people, or a large amount of money going to one farm, and said that we couldn't exceed 250,000 for any one application in total for an applicant to the scheme over the lifetime of the programme as well, to try and make sure that didn't happen. But that was the history, and the 5,000 to 30,000 is really to follow public procurement rules, because you then get into public procurement above that, which is why those 2 tiers were chosen.
Just remind me, 40% funding in both those tiers?
Yes, it's 40% in both those tiers, although we're doing an extra 10% for young farmers, and any project that's implemented through the European Innovation Partnership can also get an extra 10%, so that's 50% for those 2 types.
Yeah. Just to get back to my initial point, and that was about the advisory support schemes and the knowledge transfers. Let's take one, for instance, Environmental Advisory Support Scheme, which is on page 93 of the draft report. It's basically a paragraph, and the paragraph reads, I quote, "The scheme will provide support for specially trained environmental advisors to provide specialist conservation advice to farmers and land managers on the management of environmentally designated sites, priority habitats and priority species." Now again, it's a paragraph, but it's a very good paragraph. It says a lot of good things, but how does that actually? The scheme will provide support for specially trained environmental advisors. Who have you in mind, and what sort of specialised conservation advice to farmers and land managers? What is it? Is there any model out there that you're comparing with? Is there anything there that is seen as best practice, or is this new to us? I've only plucked one out there. I've plucked the Environmental Advisory Support Scheme, but you could say the same for the business development, knowledge transfer, the farm family skills, key skills, general training for scheme implementation, technology guidance, innovation. You could say it for them all.
Yes.
How do we actually get that? Specially trained environmental advisors, where will they come from?
If I start and then maybe pass it over to Brian, it's just, I suppose, to say at the start that I know you've said there's just a paragraph within the document. What we're trying to do with the document is reach a balance with the EU-Commission, because the more we put in here, the more we tie ourselves down later on. This is a technical document which we cannot change a word of once agreed without going through a modification.
Right, okay.
So we're trying to reach a balance of putting enough detail in to get the programme past the Commission, and to leave it flexible enough should you then wish to change direction. And so while except in some places it looks like there's not, what does that do, what does it mean, it's the detail below that matters when we start to go out in terms of presenting this to stakeholders. There's a lot of cross-cutting elements to this, and knowledge transfer and innovation is cross-cutting, and we have a diagram in there trying to explain how that all fits together. But certainly this environmental advisory scheme, Brian, very keen to sort of provide details of what we're intending with this.
And I suppose that this is a very specific provision, and what it should maybe deal with is the bigger picture. This wouldn't be the sole advice for environmental farming scheme, because we would recognise with the last scheme, it was a detailed scheme and a complex scheme, and there wasn't perhaps the necessary training and advice and support there. So we would see going forward in the environmental farming scheme that an integrated part of it and a key part of it will be training and advice. Now, that will depend on what level of the scheme farmers are in. Where it's the targeted level, there will be, that's very specific, and a management plan for their farm in many cases, and particularly for designated sites. So the advice will be one-to-one then. But on the wider level, there will be advisors one to many farmers in the scheme. So there will be group training and group activities and advice, because we do recognise we need to make sure farmers understand the measures and the requirements of them in the scheme and how to best implement them. So that's on the broader scale. This specific advice is very much tailored to designated sites and where there may be expertise there in the wider environmental sector for very niche, would be the way to describe it, issues, and that's where that's aimed at, so that we have provision in there to do that, should that be necessary. Places.
Okay, and I take the point, Lorraine, with regards to trying to get the thing through Europe, so
Yeah.
you have all my sympathies on that one. Okay, Tom Buchanan.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask you how this new programme will help to overcome some of the ongoing difficulties that are still in the rural areas regarding rural broadband? The farming community now have been asked to do their applications online and so forth, yet access to rural broadband is still a huge issue in a lot of rural areas. In what way will this programme help to overcome those difficulties?
Okay. Well, I'll start off and probably bring colleagues in on this. There is an element of what we're proposing doing under the Priority 6, which will provide support for rural broadband. It's there has been in the existing programme, and there will be in the future an element of that. It's also something that we'll be working alongside with DETI, relating on the rural broadband in terms of, or broadband generally, as opposed to this department, but there are elements that we want, and perhaps
We're currently just rolling out with DETI the Northern Ireland Broadband Improvement Project, and the Minister agreed to put 5 million into that, and the overall package 19 million. On the back of this programme, what we're intending to do under basic services is very much target the small, very isolated areas where we would hope to get a better penetration than the bigger schemes tend to work out the way, and there's nothing really coming from the outside coming back in. So what we intend with the broadband fund, it's only a small fund within Priority 6, but it would be intending to go out and target more remote areas and involve communities and groups of farmers, etc., to try and bring them together to get critical mass, and then develop schemes around that to get broadband into them.
Well, is that work ongoing at present to get that structure, if you like, set in place so that it can then be rolled out?
Well, I think until we see the outworkings of the current investment, the Northern Ireland Broadband Project, until we see the outworkings of what's left untouched at the end of that, it's hard to go and just start work straight away, but certainly the intention would be to work very closely with local authorities. A number of local authorities have done quite detailed studies of their areas where they've highlighted black spots and not spots, and what we're hoping for is to liaise with them and local communities to try and put the funding on the ground.
When do you anticipate you will see the outworking of what already is in place, so that then you can target what is still left that's missing?
Well, certainly the DARD funding part of that will all be invested by March 31st of March 15. So I would have thought by the tail end of next year we would have a good idea of what is left. I'm aware that there are other initiatives going on too within DETI, but ours is very particular, that we want to target the small areas that up until now just are too uneconomical to do with a fixed wire connection, but there are other alternatives.
Just perhaps maybe Louise or Lorraine. Sorry,
Yeah,
do you want to come in?
I just want to point out about rural broadband in that above the EU programme sit this partnership agreement, the UK partnership agreement, and there's a Northern Ireland chapter within that. That covers ERDF and ESF funds as well. Now, ERDF is not addressing any broadband issues in their programme, and so we were left with putting a small amount of money towards rural broadband. Now, one of the thematic objectives is a separate 11 thematic objectives that sit under the partnership agreement is about addressing ICT. Now, the Commission have looked at the first draft of that partnership agreement and are very unhappy. Well, DG Regio is very unhappy about us having support in there for broadband because it hasn't come up as a country-specific recommendation. As far as they're concerned, the UK has adequate broadband coverage. So we've now moved that out of that thematic objective and put it more under the basic services village renewal, and saying that what we will be doing in broadband will be more social inclusion and poverty, basic service type stuff, smaller projects, because we won't get approval for larger scale. They're saying that the money we were intending to put against that just wouldn't be sufficient to address something strategically. So we are going to, that's under negotiation, but it's not just us, they're also putting DEFRA and Wales under pressure on the same thematic objective. And that's we will get the formal feedback on the partnership agreement within the next week or two. So I have now put it under basic services village renewal, and that's the way we're going to present it to the Commission, that this is more about social inclusion and looking at small community-led projects to address places where there's difficulty in connection.
Okay. Joanne Dobson.
Thanks, Chair. How do you feel an announcement of financial support for the Going for Growth strategy would affect the rural development programme? And then I wanted to touch on, the Chair touched on this earlier, the decision, I wanted you to explain the decision around the merger of the tiers 2 and 3 of the business investment scheme, leaving only 2 tiers, and I think you've sort of not largely covered, but was there not previous indication from the Department that funding at each of the proposed 3 tiers could be ring-fenced? This now been ditched?
Okay, so just starting with your first question, how will the funding for Farm Business Improvement Scheme affect the RDP? I suppose it means that we will be able to include a farm business improvement scheme, or a sort of a full farm business improvement scheme in the RDP. The initial the funding that we have from the European Commission is 187.5 million. That's the EU funding. What DARD can do within its own resources is match fund, or we were committing to match fund that money. So those elements together would not be sufficient to enable the Department to deliver a farm business improvement scheme as requested by the Board. So the objective in the RDP, which is about farm competitiveness, is very much being addressed by the funding that will be made available for the farm business improvement scheme.
The ring fencing, Colette, of the merger, the Chair spoke earlier about the merger of the tiers, so 2 and 3, there's only 2 tiers now, I understand you have yes. touched on this. Was there, that was ring fenced then, why was that ditched with the 3rd tier?
I don't think it's that we've ditched it. We did say in our response to the consultation, in response to the farming industry being concerned about too much money going, that we would consider ring fencing budgets, but we haven't ditched anything at this stage, because we have still to announce what the budgets are and how those will be managed. If we were going to ring fence, it wouldn't go in this document, because that would tie us down too much. It would be something that would be very much internally decided, and whether we get successful bids made to the executive or DFP for the funding for the scheme, when that will open, what tier will open. Maybe that will even determine the time frame that we have to spend the money in, because the bigger scheme will take a lot more planning. A scheme up to 30k would take, on a reference pricing, would be quicker to open. So a lot of those decisions will sit beneath the programme document as such and haven't been taken yet until we get the budget sorted out.
Okay, so essentially it was to be
well, we had said that in the consultation document. We consider ring fencing, and as we haven't said we're not going to do that. We have to work through the details of the schemes.
Okay, thanks, Chair.
Yeah, and then you did mention, which is very important, the renewable aspect, taking out. Okay, Joe Byrne, Deputy Chairperson.
Chairman, just to follow on from Tom's issue about rural broadband, because I think a lot of people feel that's an issue of equality and it's not been addressed adequately. In relation to your renewable energy policy, are you ditching it? Because reading this paragraph, capital support for renewable energy technologies will not be supported due to the prohibitive cost connecting the electricity grid and the introduction of a feed-in tariff scheme within Northern Ireland. Renewable energy remains an integral part of departmental policy on lowering the carbon footprint of local food production, and the programme will continue to support the on-farm renewable sector through support for feasibility studies. It seems to me like a token recognition of the renewable energy objectives.
No, well, Section 5 of the document is very much what the Commission want to see in terms of how you have justified the needs that in the front sections that you have identified. You then have to lead into this section that then says, well, these are the measures that we have selected and these are the ones that we have prioritised and the needs that we have prioritised. We had responses from DETI into the interdepartmental consultation that we did. They also pointed out that the support that we would supply within the Rural Development Programme could be at odds with the support available outside, that this would mean to the grant having to be paid back. So this is a process that you have to go through to look at the complementarity with the other EU programmes and then to prioritise your funding to where you need it to go and not to overlap with what other incentives might be available. We don't want to rule out renewable energy entirely out of the programme, and we are allowed to do feasibility studies even if they're not attached to a building or piece of equipment. That's a change from the current programme. In the current programme, feasibility studies were only eligible if associated with a capital element of the project. So we're saying that we will provide support for that feasibility studies to enable those to go off into the routes that are already available and the incentives that are already there. And we're particularly looking around community elements of that as well. There are some projects that, and even around the EIP, where we might be able to bring people together to look at incentives for renewable energy. We haven't ditched a policy in any way, because what we're looking more is at resource efficiency. And while renewable energy isn't in the programme, we will be looking at any of the new buildings, any of the new farm elements that are there, reaching, having a resource efficiency and energy efficiency element to those as well. And we may eventually look, as the programme goes on, into other elements of renewable energy, which is more actually about energy storage. The other element, I would say, was about the inequalities around the grid, because the grid to the west of Ireland is obviously getting a connection onto the grid is the other element. And it's interesting to note that the ERDF programme is actually including a grid strengthening project within there. So it's actually a good example of EU programmes working together to make the funding more effective, rather than us doing something that ERDF have told us that it wasn't a good idea to do. So that's the rationale behind it, but we have no way ditched it. We are certainly still looking at, as climate change and environment is a cross-cutting element of the programme, and we have to get it throughout every piece of support within the programme.
The only comment I'd make is, for 10 years now, farmers were encouraged to get involved in the renewable energy business. Many have gone out and spent money seeking planning permission for a single one turbine. Once they've got it, they realised that they can't connect to the grid. So they found in the betwixt position, the limbo position, and all that you're offering is paying for a feasibility study.
Well, I think it's a case of prioritising the funding that we have, because we did recognise that the grid is an issue, and getting connection to the grid in the current programme was an issue. And I think, Gareth, you would agree with that under the diversification projects that were done?
Yeah, totally agree. And I know there's at least one member around the table here that has a couple of applicants was affected by it, Tom, because I remember the correspondence made in. And I think really what we're saying now with the feasibility study, as part of that feasibility study, should address the issue of, is there the ability to connect to the grid in that area? So whereas we're not providing the capital grant, we would at least hope to provide the funding for the feasibility study that will leave somebody with a very black and white decision, either I can do this or I can't.
Thanks, John.
Okay, Robin Swan.
Thanks, Chair. Brian, just come back to something you were saying about the environmental schemes and the training being involved. Can you give us any guarantee that the training will be at the front of any scheme you're going to initiate? Because I'm aware of problems we've had with the Northern Ireland Countryside Management, especially under field boundary restoration, where there's a requirement that the training must take part in the 7-year programme, and there's now individuals 4 or 5 years into that programme who haven't received the training that is specified in the department's handbook that they're meant to receive, and therefore when they fall foul, in my view, it would actually be the department's fault because they haven't provided the training that they're meant to.
Yeah, your point's well made, and would acknowledge that there does need to be a bigger element and upfront, and even maybe before farmers sign up for the scheme, there needs to be very clear information of what they're signing up to, so that we would acknowledge that your point's well made.
Sorry,
yeah.
You're acknowledging that my point's well made. I'm asking, are you going to do it?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the intention, and what we want to do is learn very much from the lessons of the past and with NICMS, and certainly what is very different this time round with agri-environment is the whole EU control regime behind agri-environment is now different than when NICMS was set up, and it's a much tighter control environment, and therefore the whole thing needs to be designed with that in mind. While NICMS wasn't designed before the control regime came along afterwards, and that gave problems, and the lack of adequate training and support.
The tighter control you're referring from, is that department control or European control?
European, very much European, and the Commission are very focused on this, and they're particularly sensitive about the controls on agri-environment in light of a European Court of Auditors report that was critical of agri-environment schemes across Europe. And certainly in our discussions with the Commission, it's very clear their sensitivity to this, and they want to see things very clearly specified.
Yes, we had one video conference, and it was on the environment and forestry content of the programme, and they were very clear that we had to have a clear need for the environment. It is a compulsory measure within the programme, but we have to have a clear need of the options that we've chosen to put in there. They should deliver environmental benefit, and they should be controllable. And finding the balance between those two elements is going to be a real challenge. And they keep saying you must show environmental benefit, but you must be able to control these schemes as well.
Yeah, so that as Lorraine has eloquently outlined, that's a big challenge. And what the Commission are saying is they're saying, well, if you can't control it, don't put it in. And yet there are things environmentally you'd want to do that can be difficult to control. So there's quite a tension there and a challenge.
Can you translate tighter control from the Commission as to what will actually happen through the department onto a farm?
I think I'll explain what we want to try and do in setting up the scheme. Is not make it overly prescriptive, because certainly NICMS was very detailed in prescription, so it's trying to get a balance there that is prescriptive enough to deliver environmental benefit, but without creating a lot of difficulties, issues with control. So that's...
Sorry, on the ground, are we talking more inspection?
No, we certainly wouldn't be aiming to inspect more. In fact, we'd be wanting to design measures that would hopefully have the potential to result in fewer non-compliances and error rates, and structure the scheme as such, because what happens because of the EU regulations there, once you get a certain amount of error, then your inspections have to go up and up and up. So we'd want to design it in a way that keeps it simple and straightforward for the farmer, ideally, and simple and straightforward and robust for DARD to control. And that's what we're aiming for. And I know those words are easy to utter, but there's a lot of thinking and technical work going on here to get to where we want to be. Yeah.
Simple and robust environmental schemes, then, is that?
Yeah, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
But we're up for a challenge. I think we're up for a challenge.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, I certainly couldn't let Garth go without touching rural development. I know that other members have touched it here, but 80 million, 12% of the overall budget. Is that right? 12% of the six. No, sorry, 80 million in total for rural development.
Yes, that's right.
And that's all going to priority 6.
Yep.
So you've got 80 million, which is about 12% of the overall 623 million. slightly lesser remit, maybe a lesser remit, if you're including village renewal scheme, rural broadband, rural basic services, rural tourism schemes, all very important, but slightly lesser, more focused than it.
That's absolutely the key word, more focused.
Yeah.
And I think as well, when you look at the business improvement scheme, it is looking at all rural businesses. It doesn't matter what sort of rural business that is, whether it's a diversified farm business, a tourism business, those are all within the one measure. I suppose the other key change that's in there under the business measure is that we now have the programme opened up to small businesses. We were restricted before to micro business, which was up to 10. We can now go up to 50, which I think is a significant difference. We have provided funding on several programmes towards micro businesses, and it has always gone fairly well, but we've never been able to touch the small businesses. And if you follow the route through, really what we should be doing is providing funding through programmes for micro businesses who grow and become small businesses, and then if we can assist them again to go upwards and onwards, that's even better. So I think that's a significant change in the programme for us.
Now that you're more focused, now that you have, and you've said it yourself, you've known this was going to come.
Yep.
Leader's not going to disappear; it's here. You have that infrastructure in place. We know the problems we had with administration up front, getting everything in place before we could actually get money in the ground. How can you assure this committee that you will be able to spend or get money down on the ground nearly immediately?
We have been given a very, very clear target by the Minister, and that is that the day the programme is signed off in Europe, she wants lags in place, ready to open calls and get out and do their business, and that's what we're working towards. We're working towards having lags in place before Christmas and having local development strategies drafted and signed off in time for April, and the contracts then awarded to the lags. The programme is also a bit more significant this time in that there is a fund within the administration for animation. This is something that wasn't there before. And there was an event earlier and there were some statistics read out, and often you get statistics around the current programme where we had thousands of applications, 6,000-7,000 applications, and end up investing money in 1,800. Really what the animation is for is to get out there, for the local action groups to go out into the community and explain better what the funding is about. So when it comes to the time of the call, you don't have masses of applications coming in, many of which will never go anywhere at all. And that animation funding will be key going forward.
Okay. Sorry, Rob, do you want to?
Just a very quick one. Lags are going to be in place. How are they going to be constituted?
We're still looking around the constitution, but at the minute I don't think we would be looking for anything other than a limited company by guarantee.
Sorry, when I mean constitution made up, are they going to be made up on the new council boundaries? Are they going to be?
Yes, they will be. Sorry, the lag areas will be coterminous with the new council boundaries, and we would see the councils having a very fulsome role going forward.
Okay, Joe, did you want in again?
No.
Any other? No more members have indicated, but any other members want to come in? No further questions, then? Okay, we do appreciate that's a wide spectrum. We do appreciate there's some details still to be inserted, as I've stated in a lot of the documentation. And we understand the reasons for that. Some reasons just haven't been thrashed out. Some other reasons then with regards to the EU. Certainly I suppose this committee, and certainly I, wish you all the best in your discussions with the Union, European Union. I know they can obviously be difficult and laborious, so I wish you all the best in that there. And there's no further questions, so again thank you very much for your time here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, members, it's 15 minutes before the Minister comes before us, so comfort break? Members content? Yes, sorry, before we do go into, before we do adjourn, just like to just like to wish Robin all the best. I know he's going off the...
For crap.
He's going off the committee.
I'm sure you're not the only one.
I wish you all the best anyway. I know that Tom Elliott's taking over, but I don't know what committee you're going on to, if any, but I wish you all the
I think
best.
Chair Dale's enough, isn't it? As Chief Whip. Can I say again, Chair, again for the second time today, what a valuable commitment Robin has made to committee.
I'm going to cry here.
I know his commitment to the agricultural industry will still be as strong as ever.
What you looking for, Robin?
Already got it, Tom.
Okay, we'll adjourn. Okay, that's it.
2:45 for the Minister, yeah.
2:45.
Convened at 14:36.
Okay, members, moving on then, we've reconvened. Agenda item number 10 is the ministerial briefing from Darren Minister, CAP Reform Decisions, RDP 2014-2020 and Going for Growth. Can I refer members to the correspondence from the Minister at pages 273 to 274 and associated press release at pages 275 to 276. Can I welcome Michelle O'Neill, MLA, Minister for Agriculture and Rural Development, Noel Lavery, Dard, Permanent Secretary, Colette McMaster, Grade 5, Assistant Secretary, and Norman Fulton, Grade 5, Chief Agricultural Economist. And I understand that Tom Kennedy, Grade 5, Assistant Secretary, who is in charge of the relocation of the public gallery, relocation of the HQ, is in the public gallery and can come forward if requested. Minister, you're very welcome. I know you're pushed for time. I know you've only got the half an hour here, so you're very, very welcome, along with your officials, to the committee as always. Members have had an opportunity to read your letter and the accompanying press release, and we have just heard from the officials on the RDP aspects. So can I invite you just now to say a few words to the committee on these issues?
Okay, thank you, Chairperson. And obviously we're delighted that all major decisions in CAP reform have now been taken, and that gives the certainty for farmers to be able to plan ahead. Overall, in my opinion, the package is one that is fair and balanced, and it's been evidenced, I think, by the general feedback and positive reaction that we've had from stakeholders over the last number of days. Obviously, in any situation, not everybody got what they wanted, but there was never going to be a case that, given the divergence of views, that everybody would be content. But I think that, as I said, what we have is a fair and balanced outcome. In terms of the rate of transition, a 7-year transition period towards a flat rate payment is, again, fair and balanced, and will give businesses the time that they've asked for to be able to adjust and to adapt. Just to be clear, decoupled support is there to support incomes and not production, and the key issue was about the length of time the businesses had to adjust to the redistribution of support. As I said, I know that some would obviously want to see a much longer transition, and there are others that would want to see it coming about a lot quicker. What we have is a longer transition period than what has been provided in many other regions. But I think that, as I said, that where we are now is a much better place. In terms of the number of regions, a single region is most suited to our circumstances, and that is what objective analysis clearly demonstrated for us. The overall amount of redistribution of direct payments is very similar between the single region and the two-region model. Therefore, having a two-region model rather than a single region model will make little difference to the actual overall aggregate amount of direct payments going to those that have the highest rates per hectare at present. Decoupled support, again, as I've already said, is not about supporting production, it's about supporting incomes. And I couldn't justify a situation whereby the region which is the lowest level of farm incomes would receive a lower level of income support payment. In terms of calculating the greening payment, we've linked the greening payment to the basic payment, and I believe it's the best way to achieve a smooth and gradual transition towards a flat rate payment. I'm not convinced in terms of coupled support that that's the way to go forward. If anything, I think it's a step back to what we had before 2005. However, I've said that I'm prepared to keep that issue under review. However, just to point out that economic analysis would suggest that coupled support would have a minimal impact in terms of production levels. But we don't have a closed mind to that. We're happy to keep it under review. In terms of the ANC scheme, satisfied that the funding for the ANC scheme from Pillar 2 for a further 2 years is the best way forward at this moment in time. A Pillar 1 scheme would have required the new ANC designation to be in place by 2015, and that was looking very difficult to achieve, given that there are many technical queries outstanding about the redesignation process. So my department will work on the redesignation, but we're not planning at this stage to introduce it before 2017. The rules that are governing the ANC scheme then
that we have from next year will not allow us to continue making payment to DA farmers. However, I'm hoping, and you'll be aware from the announcement last week, that we're hoping to make a one-year transitional payment under the state aid de minimis rules to those farmers that are now going to face exclusion from the ANC measure. Turning then to Pillar 2, rural development, and I'm conscious that you've just had a presentation from officials and maybe quite a lengthy session on that, but obviously I'm delighted that to have received executive agreement to a budget up to £623 million for the next RDP. That's an increase in funding of almost 16% compared to the current programme, and obviously gives us the largest RDP that we've ever had in the North. It will allow us to deliver a broad range of measures to improve the competitiveness of our farm and of the agri-food businesses, protect and enhance our environment, and improve the quality of life in our rural communities. I intend to match the EU funds pound for pound with my £186.5 million of my own department's resources. The provision of this match funding will be a high priority to ensure that we maximise the EU funds that are available. The agreement secured with the Executive will provide additional funding of up to £250 million to fund the proposed Farm Business Improvement Scheme as requested by the Agri-Food Strategy Board. This additional funding will help me deliver on the aims and objectives in the Board's Going for Growth. The Farm Business Improvement Scheme will be an important part of the next RDP and will include a portfolio of measures to support sustainable growth in the sector. Overall, I intend to allocate up to £287 million of the budget for the next programme to improve the competitiveness of our farm and agri-food businesses. This will represent up to 46% of the value of the new programme, which is an increase from 11% which has been allocated to competitiveness in the current rural development programme, so that's quite significant. I think that reflects my commitment to deliver on the Agri-Food Strategy Board's recommendations that are being set out in the Sustainable Going for Growth paper. We all recognise that the beef sector has been under increasing pressure, and I want to make sure that the next RDP could also help to address a lot of the beef sector issues, or some of the beef sector issues. I'm pleased the proposed Farm Business Improvement Scheme will include a number of measures which could potentially benefit beef farmers, including advice, training, capital support and initiatives to promote the sharing of knowledge, encourage innovation and improve the quality of the land. And I'm keen that beef farmers take up the opportunities that will be available in the next rural development programme to invest in their skills and in their business. I'm particularly concerned at the moment about the impact of the significant penalties applied by meat plants for out-of-spec cattle, both for farmers and the wider beef industry, and I hope that all elements of the supply chain can work together to get a mutually agreeable resolution on the current difficulties, and my department and I will support that process wherever possible. As you will be aware, I have met with and listened to farmers, marts, processors, food service sector and representative bodies, and I am grateful to the committee for facilitating a further informal meeting with the marts after this discussion today. I have allocated £256 million of the budget for the protection of the environment through support for an environmental farming scheme, a land management programme, an ANC scheme and forestry, management for natural resources to improve biodiversity, and to build on the significant investment and the work which has been carried out in the current programme is one of my priorities. Finally, I have allocated £80 million of the budget for rural development, and this demonstrates my continued commitment to support the economic and social development of our rural communities. Can I just, Chairperson, take the opportunity to thank all of our stakeholders for their time and input into the development of the programme so far, and for their continuing support over the next number of months as we move to finalise the programme and present it for formal submission to the EU Commission. As I said, the committee, I'm aware, has just received the detailed presentation, so I don't intend to go over all of those points again, but I just wanted to outline some of those sort of higher details, and also to I suppose to flag up that I intend to make further announcements over the next few weeks on the proposed content of the next RDP and the details of how funds will be allocated to each individual schemes within the programme. And I appreciate that will be in recess, but I will happily be able to communicate that with the committee. I'm sure we can find a mechanism to be able to do that, given that we are in recess. Finally then, just in terms of Going for Growth, it obviously set out a vision and a roadmap for us that highlighted the tremendous opportunities that there are to grow the agri-food sector. So delighted again that the Executive has agreed its response to Going for Growth as part of the overall package of significant support measures on CAP and the Rural Development Programme that we announced last week. As the committee is aware, a lot of groundwork has been going on behind the scenes, and we have already made significant progress on a number of fronts, including access to new markets, supporting innovation and skills, animal and plant health, and improving sustainability through the MET scheme. Going for Growth aims to improve the sustainability and the competitiveness of farms and the wider agri-food industry, so it's appropriate that the new RDP is going to be the key tool for delivery on our agreed actions in the report. In particular, the proposed Farm Business Improvement Scheme is one of the major recommendations from my department. Now that we have agreement on the budget, I will bid for up to the 250 million of additional funds for that scheme. There are, of course, other proposed schemes within the RDP that will address Going for Growth recommendations around knowledge transfer, land improvement, protecting the environment and facilitating cooperation within supply chains. We're also looking at support for processors, and my officials are working up a detail of these and associated business cases. We'll continue to work with the Agri-Food Strategy Board, its subgroups and other departments in progressing other agreed actions. So that's really a quick run through on the three topics, and we're short for time. So.
Okay, Minister, thank you very much for that presentation. Can I ask members to be very, very brief and succinct with their questions? One question and then one supplementary if needed, and if we have time we'll go round, but I don't think we will. So it's important that we get everybody that wants to ask a question in. My question, Minister, obviously you've mentioned the DA farmers and the fact that they fall now out of the FACA LFA schemes. And many of them will be beef sector farmers who are under considerable pressure at this given time. You have mentioned about the 1 year transition payment claimed in 2015, paid in 2016. I know it's early days, but if that scheme goes well, are you minded to roll that on? And what other measures then can be put in place to support the DA farmer?
Well, obviously, you know that the move to change the DA and the designation is a European one, not directly linked to CAP. So the only opportunity we have is, I suppose, is to lessen the impact, and that's why we proposed this transition payment. And I suppose we can take a look at that in a number of ways as to how you do it. Do you phase it out over a year, or it can be done over a couple of 2 years, over 2 separate payments, maybe 2/3 and a third? So we're looking at what's the best option to try and cushion what will have a negative impact, particularly in those people that are already struggling in the beef sector.
Okay. Okay. Joe Byrne, Deputy Chairperson.
Thanks, Chairman. Again, welcome, Minister, and congratulations to yourself and the senior team on reaching a package of measures that I think broadly are welcome at this stage of the situation. Obviously, we earlier met a lot of officials and we talked generally about the technical issues relating to the implementation of the different schemes. But I think in broad policy terms, can I ask you a couple of questions? In terms of developing Northern Ireland agriculture going forward over the next 7 years, what are the specific tools of support to develop a more productive and profitable agri-food industry that meets EU environmental and rural development objectives? Is sustainable intensification the order of the day, given that we are only a region of 6 counties on the corner of an island of 1.35 million hectares? Thanks, Chairman.
Okay, and thanks for your words of welcome. I think the tools to support are very clearly set down for us. I've always said the Rural Development Programme was the vehicle to be able to allow us to tailor supports. I think now that we have also run alongside that the Going for Growth action roadmap that has been very clearly set out, now that we're able to use that to develop schemes under the Rural Development Programme, and I listened to some of the earlier session with officials around setting out the types of schemes that we'll have in the new Rural Development Programme. I think they're clearly, the rural development is the main tool. The Farm Business Improvement Scheme is something that I believe will, particularly around some of the early work that we're planning to do around taking a look at farm businesses, looking at their efficiency, helping people to take a look at and examine their own circumstance and what they can do, and look at the potential that there is for funding under the capital grant schemes that we're bringing forward. Land management, I think, is a key issue which people in the industry are calling for. So I believe that, again, under the Farm Business Improvement Scheme, we'll be able to bring forward, in my opinion, what are the most appropriate measures and supports that we can to help create a sustainable industry for the future. And I suppose in terms of funding, I've always said that the new programme needed to provide a balanced approach for rural communities, for farm businesses and for the environment. And I think now that we have this budget, that's allowing us to be able to do that in the most effective way.
Well, Chairman, I appreciate the Minister's comments. In terms of this sustainable intensification, are we going to be able to grow an industry by 50% in production terms and meet the EU environmental conditions? And lastly, does the Rural White Paper form any part of the shape or structure of this campaign over the next 7 years.
Sorry, I missed the last part. Does the rural white paper what?
Does the rural white paper fit, how does it fit into the overall development of the agri-food sector over the next 7 years?
Okay, well, I mean, obviously we have to all be careful and mindful of the EU environmental issues that we have to deal with, and in planning any of these programmes we take a look at that in the round. What we need to do is, we're obviously very careful in moving forward that what we have, we want to create an industry that's sustainable, that's as efficient as possible, and the only way we're going to grow production and meet the demands that are there, meet the demand for the produce that we have, is that if we make our farms more efficient. So all the projects that we're taking forward are based on creating more sustainable industry in the future, around the Farm Business Improvement Scheme, around looking at efficiency, around how do you work together cooperatively to be able to achieve efficiency. So unless, Norman, you have anything to add to that, that's really...
Yeah, I mean, sustainable intensification really is about marrying the whole concept of efficiency with environmental stewardship, two very important issues going forward, and they need to move forward hand in hand. So if you have an efficient industry, for example, you can reduce your carbon footprint per unit of output. So these are the types of issues that must be taken forward together. Ultimately, you must have sustainability built in to any industry going forward, and that's very, very important. So yes, the whole environmental stewardship has to be part and parcel of the development plans of the industry.
Okay.
Sorry, I forgot the rural white paper. Just how does that fit in? Obviously, that's ongoing. I said a number of months ago that I want to take a look at it again. I don't want it to be a stagnant document that sits on a shelf. I think that departments continually need to be refreshing what they contribute to it. I think now we very clearly have a roadmap for agri-food, but rural isn't just my department's business. Rural is every department's business. So I'll continue to challenge other departments in terms of what their contribution is, and I hope to be able to bring forward some positive news on that early in September.
Thanks, John.
Okay, Joanne Dobson.
Thanks, Chair. Minister, as we know, the beef sector is going through an extremely tough time at the minute, and I declare an interest as my husband is a beef and cereal farmer. Minister, you've said in the media that you will be sitting down with all relevant stakeholder groups over the coming weeks to work through a programme of action. Will you be including all stakeholders? What format will these discussions take? And furthermore, looking to the future, you say that you will have a clear focus on the industry. Will you give a commitment to make the plight of the beef farmer your #1 priority as Minister?
Well, I've already said that I'll prioritise the beef sector. I made that announcement back in the Balmoral show. I think that one of the biggest challenges for the beef sector is, even if you look back to recent times when prices were high, profitability was still an issue. So there's an underlying profitability issue for the beef sector which we need to take on and address. Not to rehearse, but a lot of the programmes that we've outlined under Going for Growth, under the Rural Development Programme, will help to look at profitability and examine how we can become more efficient, how farmers can become more efficient. But there are massive challenges for this industry. And I think over the last number of months in particular, with the change to spec, with the bonus and how the whole pricing structure has changed, I think this is all causing more angst to the beef sector. So it's my intention that through all the programmes that will be taken forward, that we prioritise beef, because this is a sector that obviously needs the support, and I think we need to tackle the underlying problem, which is profitability.
Your #1 priority, Minister?
That's what I said.
I know that you spoke earlier about the Farm Business Improvement Scheme could potentially help the beef sector, so potentially I think we need to go further than potentially. Can I ask you then, you've spoken about the opening of new markets for the local industry. Will you then give a commitment to relax live exports restrictions, which could undoubtedly help the local beef farmers?
There's going to be opportunities for us with the new EU Animal Health Law, and that's what we're working on at this moment in time. We hope to have that in place next year. There shouldn't be any barriers, and our farmers shouldn't be disadvantaged in any shape or fashion because of different conditions, particularly when you look at the 6 counties compared to the 26. So I give a commitment to the auctioneers when I met them with yourself some time ago to examine that issue, to make sure that that if there's any barriers there or things that are within my control that I can look at, and I stand over that. And I'll be talking to them about that actually later on today. So we want to remove any barriers. We want to be able to get into these markets. The target growth is the export growth. That's at the heart of the Going for Growth strategy and the roadmap that has been set out. So any barriers that exist to trade, we need to look towards how we can improve things and make things better. We want to be part of the wider markets, the growing population, the demand for food. We want to be there, and I'll continue to target markets. And I know that the wider executive, through both DETI and OFM DFM, are actively out encouraging and trying to get into new markets.
Sorry, and the stakeholder groups will include, the groups in the programme for action will include all stakeholders, and the format, is it, will it be on site visit, or will it be here, or how do you envisage that?
Well, we engage with people in the beef sector through a various range of ways, on-farm meetings, and we'll do all of that over the next wee while. And
everyone
in terms of growing a sector, you can't leave anybody out. You need to talk to all people who are involved in the business.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, wait a moment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Mr. Long. Also happy that there's been a package put together and things are looking more positive. In relation to the beef sector, and I did declare an interest in a farmer myself, I have some concerns on the suckler cow end of things, and I'm aware that, and I've said this before, there is some couple payment in Scotland and I know in the Republic of Ireland. And will the Minister give an assurance, if after her negotiations with all stakeholders, that if she feels a couple payment is necessary, that she will go down that route? I think if we're going to go for growth and lose a large portion of our suckler herd, one thing's going against the other. So I think it's vital that we retain the suckler herd in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, and that's why I said we'll certainly keep an open mind to it. It was very clear from the consultation that there wasn't an appetite for it. And I suppose economically we need to think about what it... Well, we consulted and it was a wide-ranging consultation, and unprecedented numbers of people responded. But the reality is there wasn't a demand for a scheme. But that being said, I've said I'll keep an open mind. We need to think it out very carefully, because what does it mean? If you bring forward a scheme of supports through a suckler scheme, does that mean that it'll have an impact on price? So we need to look at it in the round just and take a decision based on the wider economics of any sort of intervention. But again, as I said, I haven't got a closed mind to it, and I'm looking towards all the challenges that are there for the beef sector at this moment in time. I'm happy to bring everything onto the table for discussion.
I think we must realise that 7 or 8 months ago, beef prices were 50p a kilo higher than they are today. So that consultation might have a different outlook if it went out today as it did back a number of months ago, because things were different on the ground. Just on the going for growth and the proposed 250 million earmarked for that, what time frame would the Minister have in view of rolling that out?
Well, it's going to be run over the space of the programme, so 2014, well, from next year on to 2019, 2020.
When would the start of the programme?
We're aiming to have some work done, Claire, yes?
Yeah, well, we're aiming to put the programme formally to the Commission for approval in October, and hoping that the approval will be through by April 2015. That's for the full programme. But we are also looking at doing some pilot work in 14-15, and that's subject to funding being available this year. There was a bid in June monitoring for that, so some pilot work this year to prepare.
And does the Minister agree that funding must be targeted to productive agriculture?
Yes, I mean, I've always said that we need to look at the whole industry, and I think that's key in moving forward. And I think over the space of the CAP negotiations, people got in and played some sectors off the other. I don't think that's efficient or is the appropriate way to look at these things. In terms of moving forward, it is about production, it's about growing our production, it's about maintaining the agriculture, the traditional agriculture that we have across the island. So, in my view, what I've done is brought forward what is a fair and balanced approach that meets the needs of all farmers, not just some.
Okay, Declan McLeod.
Thank you. Minister, earlier on today we were upstairs and we heard met some rural stakeholders, and they were talking about the importance of the bottom-up approach, and I'm talking specifically in relation to the Priority 6 and the new programme. I just wonder, what's your view on the leader approach in the new programme?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been very supportive of the leader programme, and actually I said that today at the gathering, the celebration event, and you could very clearly see from that some of those projects all of those projects were fantastic projects, and very much came from local people having identifying problems, identifying needs needs of the community and then bringing forward solutions. So very much for me, I want to build on that in the new programme, and I'm very much wedded to the leader approach. I think that the skills base and that we've built up over the space of this programme has been fantastic. But I also would encourage other people to get involved in the new structures. The new structures will be coterminous with the new council structures. And I absolutely encourage women and young people to get involved, because I think sometimes people are off-put applying to get involved in these groups because they think it's something that's very complicated. And I would describe it as, if you want to be involved in taking decisions that affect your local community, it's European money, and I would encourage other people to get involved. So in terms of your question, I'm absolutely committed to the leader approach and moving forward.
Just briefly, I'm aware of the timescale here from the previous briefing we received from Colette and the other officials, that we're hoping it will be with the EU Commission in October. Would you envisage then that those structures will be put in place? You know, when will those structures start to be put in place?
Yes, one of the criticisms of the current programme is that it took a bit of time to get things going on the ground. So we don't want to lose any time. We want to be able to get on the ground and get spend out there very quickly. So we plan to advertise and have those in place, Colette, by...
Yes, you've told us to make sure that the new lags are in place before Christmas.
Yes.
And the strategy is approved before April, so that be ready to run when the approval is through for the RDP.
Because I think it was a lot of unnecessary criticism of the current programme, that people felt that spend didn't happen quickly. So we don't need to have that situation again. We can hit the ground running. I've said today that we will start the animation work, which never happened in the current programme. So basically that's going out and talking to communities, and I think that that's going to start from now. So I think that'll really help get things moving, and we'll not lose out on any time in getting spend on the ground.
Okay, Robert Swan.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, thanks for your attendance. Sorry, to take it just outside from your statement, but come back to the letter, you've actually sent in the last point, and that's start relocation headquarters. And I say you've made the announcement work to start at the end of 2015. Have you received DFP approval for your business case?
Do you want to take that? No, our business case.
Well, just on the technical aspect of that is no, but the executive has approved the ministerial direction. So the minister will direct me, and that will go to the audit office. So we'll be in discussion with DFP on aspects of the business case, but technically it's already approved by the business case, and as summarised in the minister's paper to the executive, is approved by the executive. So, sorry, it's approved by the executive. We'll be in discussions with DFP.
The decision to relocate, can I get this, just to clarify this, no, the decision to relocate was approved by the executive?
Yes, and that also included the costs and the structure of the relocation and the minister's plans and how that would be structured.
Without the business case actually being approved, you are now instructed, sorry, in respect to that, just ask the Minister, you'll be moving under ministerial direction required by managing public money under Northern Ireland to direct the finance officer to proceed without proper business case approval?
No, all proper approvals have been sought. This has went to the executive. The executive has agreed, including the financial costs associated with it, and have agreed for that to go forward. This is a good news story for rural communities. This is a good news story for the North West. This is decentralising public sector jobs, which this executive has signed up to.
But Minister, it's also about clarity in the business case, and if you do recall, any time you were in front of this committee, a number of members around this table queried about why other sites hadn't been looked at and why business cases hadn't been sought for them as well. I'm just trying to clarify that you're now moving under ministerial direction.
Yes.
Minister, the executive has approved that the minister directs me to proceed to incur expenditure on the relocation of DART's headquarters to Ballykelly, and that's full executive approval.
And that has received the full cost benefit analysis by DFP.
No, it's been full cost benefit analysis by the department, which has now had the executive's approval. We will share the business case with DFP, and we welcome any comments that DFP has on it.
The normal process would be DFP would approve a business case.
Yes, but the executive has now approved the business case, including the finance minister. Well, the first and deputy first minister approves under urgent procedure.
So OFM DFM has approved the business case, not.
No, I think Well,
No,
there's processes in place, and the executive has, through a very legitimate, it's on paper process, has agreed the process.
Yeah, and so in terms of full approval for me to incur the expenditure for Darge HQ to relocate to Ballykelly.
The ministers have approved.
Ministers have approved it. First and Deputy First Minister, under urgent procedure, approve it, and the Minister will direct me to do that.
Last time,
All approvals are in place.
OFM DFM has approved the business case by special procedure.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, Ian Mullen.
Thank you, Chair.
Last
and,
one.
I want to say thanks to the Minister for coming along today, and also to congratulate yourself and your team for negotiating and getting to the point where you're at today. I think there it's a very positive and well-balanced approach, as you have said yourself. Have you had any feedback since then, from the farming communities in general? While we have sometimes individual criticisms, in general, would you say that the whole package has gone down and the farming communities really well and the rural development?
Yes, I mean, I believe it's generally been perceived as a positive development, that there's been political agreement, that there's clarity being provided. So in that basis, yes, it has went down reasonably well. I think that, of course, in any situation, there's going to be people who would have wanted more or people who would have wanted less years, particularly in terms of transition. So when you have a divergence of views, it's always hard to come out with everybody being content. However, I think people do generally recognise it as reasonable and balanced in moving forward. One of the things that people are asking for and that we're working on now is just more detail, particularly around, for example, young farmers who'd want to come into the scheme next year. So we're working up a process, a communication strategy just over the next number of months that will allow us to communicate more detail around the new situation. And as I said, particularly that will be focused on young farmers over the next wee while. But I know we'll be in recess, but we will make sure that the committee is circulated and kept informed of all of those things, and even the communication strategy. Whenever we sign it off, we're happy to share that with the committee also.
Okay. Again, Minister, I know we're stuck for time to go into this other informal meeting, but can I just thank you very much, you and your officials, for attending here today. I know this was at short notice and you arranged this with us, so I appreciate that very much so. I give the members of this committee a chance to ask questions on the CAP reform decisions, RDP and Going for Growth, and of course illustrating the issue around the beef sector. Now, can I just say to members that CAP, Pillar 1 and 2, Going for Growth and HQ relocation are due for oral briefings in the autumn. And again, any information that comes forward then over the summer, we'll be able to get it to each and every single one of you on the committee with regards to what develops over the summer. So there's no issue around that whatsoever. Agenda item number 12 then is just a date and time of next meeting, which will be Tuesday, 9th of September. That meeting will start at 12 noon with a working lunch to discuss our strategic planning for the committee and to participate in financial scrutiny training. A reminder email and text will be sent out to members. We will now go to an informal meeting with the Northern Ireland Livestock Auctioneers Association in room 30. So again, thank you very much, Minister, for your attendance here today. Sorry, William, you want to?
I want to raise an issue about, I believe this committee visit Scotland and look at how they deliver their capital grant scheme there. Also, they have a number of things that we could look at, how they have a decouple scheme for the beef sector. And they've also TB-free status, so there's three things we could look at in Scotland. I support that.
Again, our first meeting is a strategic planning meeting, so that's something we could bring up and get placed in the diary.
I think, but if you wait to September, it's going to be 2 months on at least before you can arrange that, so I think we should be looking at the possibilities.
Okay, well, could we have happy enough with William's proposal that we get the clerk to get Stella to look at this now, just over the next couple of weeks, just to see.
Robin's going to miss a trip.
Sorry, Robin.
I didn't know you were going to Scotland.
You don't go down,
I don't know if you had a choice, I don't know. Okay, members, meeting adjourned.
Definitely can't do